So all the way back in my first video, which was only about 2 months ago, I asked people to start sending in suggestions for what they'd want to see on the channel. And this suggestion actually comes from one of my childhood friends who I met back in 5th grade, who now lives in Florida. And I think when you live in Florida, you're automatically on a big rum kick. I don't live in Florida, but I'm on a big rum kick, and I recommend being on a big rum kick. And so today we're going to talk about a Mai Tai. And a Mai Tai was created in the 1940s by a Tiki icon named Trader Vic. Trader Vic was one of those guys that would never let the truth get in the way of a good story, and so he actually only had one leg and would tell people that he lost it in a shark attack. I think the truth was a little bit less interesting, but nonetheless, it kind of helped for his coastal vibe. I was actually recently at a great tiki bar in Chicago called 3 Dots and a Dash, and they call their Mai Tai on the menu their Trader Vic's Mai Tai as a nod to the creator. And the story goes that whenever Trader Vic first created the drink, he was trying to make something that was as iconic for rum as the martini was for gin or as the Manhattan was for whiskey. And he made a drink that was a little bit simpler. He didn't want the original rum he was using was a 17-year-old J. Ray and nephew, and he didn't want to cover it up with so many like exotic fruit juices or syrups or anything like that. And so he did add some orange flavor, some lime flavor, and some orgeat. They're a little bit more restrained in this drink than some other passion fruit or tangerine flavors that you might get in some other tiki drinks. And so when Trader Vic first created this drink, it was for a couple of Tahitian friends who exclaimed in Tahitian, "out of this world," which loosely translates to Mai Tai. So for a Mai Tai, we actually have quite a few ingredients that we're going to talk about today. I think Trader Vic, either he was, or at least he told people he was quite a traveler. And so we've got some Dutch ingredients, we've got some French ingredients. There's kind of a whole world of things going on here. And so we'll kind of talk about each bottle I have out, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing built. We're going to use 2 different rums today. I know some recipes will call just for 1, some will do 2, some will do 3. I thought 2 was a great place to start. Depending on what rums you have, you're going to want between 2 and 2 1/4 ounces of rum for this cocktail. I'm going to do 2 1/4. I'll do 1.5 ounces of our Plantation Xaymaca, I think is how you pronounce it, which is a dry 100% pot still rum. And then we'll also have a Hamilton 86. And so these 2 rums complement each other because they kind of have different sorts of sweetnesses and different kind of peaks and valleys from a flavor perspective. I would say that this special dry has a little bit of like kind of a rock candy quality. It's a little bit, you certainly smell the molasses on the nose, but it's not quite as intense from a spice perspective. And then the Hamilton 86 has almost a licoricey character. There's no like sweetener or spices added, but that licorice quality just comes from the fermentation, from the distillation characteristics. Then also we're gonna need fresh squeezed lime juice. I've got a little over 1 ounce here. We'll need 1 ounce for this cocktail. We've got dry Curacao. So this particular Curacao is made from cognac, and it has a great sort of orange quality to it because it's made with orange peel. And then we also have, I've used this on an episode before. This is Orgeat. It's an almond syrup. And so it's made with sugar and almonds and a little bit of orange blossom water. And then finally, this is in a bitters bottle, but it's actually not bitters. This is some 80-20 saline solution. So what that means is I did 80 grams of water to 20 grams of salt and mix that up together until the salt kind of dissolves. I'll still shake it up before I use it because I used a Himalayan pink salt and it does kind of settle out at the bottom. But that salt, with the amount of orgeat we're going to be using in the cocktail, it doesn't really make the drink sweet, but adding a little bit of salt helps to kind of make the drink pop a little more. If any of y'all have heard of an Instagram cocktail influencer, there's a guy named Thirsty Whale that yells pop whenever he talks about salt solutions. So I'm not going to scream on this channel today, but use a little salt. Okay, let's get building. I'm going to build it in the big tin, and then I will use the small tin for some crushed ice. I'm going to start with 1.5 ounces of this Plantation pot still rum. And then we're going to do 3/4 ounce of this Hamilton 86. We'll then add 3/4 ounce of orgeat. Some recipes will call for a blend of orgeat and simple syrup. I don't use orgeat in a ton of drinks besides a Mai Tai, and so I like to just make the entire sweetener base from orgeat. We'll need a ½ ounce of this dry Curacao. If you've got Cointreau at home, you can probably use that too. You may have to adjust the amounts a little bit because Cointreau is a little bit sweeter than this dry Curacao. And then we're going to do a full ounce of lime juice that I squeezed earlier. And also, whenever you're squeezing your lime, reserve one of the halves or a lime shell because we'll put that in the cocktail as part of the garnish. And then before we shake, we just need to grab the saline. I like it in a dasher bottle. A lot of recipes that you'll see will actually call for a dropper. I didn't have a dropper bottle, so I'm just going to do 1 dash of this saline, like that. So I've got my crushed ice. Now let's shake. Now for the Mai Tai, and actually for several different tiki drinks, you get to do what's called a dirty dump. It's a rough vernacular, but it just basically means that you're able to, instead of straining the drink at all or pouring it over fresh ice, you dump the entire contents of the shaker into your glass. So whenever you're putting the ice in the shaker, you'll want to keep that in mind from a quantity perspective. There you go. And then for garnish, I've got some mint. I didn't have a ton at home, but this is the crop I'm working with, so that's what we're going to do. Give it a little bit of a smack. That's just to kind of wake up those aromatics. We'll tuck them right in here. And then this is what some people will refer to as a boat. It can be kind of part of the garnishing. Kitsch is strong in tiki, and so this boat can be filled with a cherry. It can be filled with more rum if you're feeling daring, sometimes an overproof rum. And if you're feeling Evel Knievel daring, you can even light that rum on fire. I'm not going to do it in today's episode because I think that rum on fire thing doesn't actually produce a very pretty flame. It's kind of a dull blue flame. But in a future tiki drink, because I am excited about tiki these days, we will set something else on fire that produces a much bigger and more interesting flame. This is one of those drinks that benefits from a straw. There's a lot going on the top of the drink, so it's kind of hard to get your face in there. But the straw is short enough that whenever you take a sip, you still get the mint on the nose. So there's no mint really in the drink. It's really just an aromatic topper. But whenever you kind of smack it, you release some of those oil, or this happens to be a peppermint, but the peppermint oils out into the air. Yeah, this is one of my favorite drinks right now. The Texas summer kind of just extends and extends and extends. And so although we are in fall right now, it is not too late in the year for a Mai Tai. It's such a great balance of citrus and rum and sweetness. And so there's a nice fruit character that's a little bit understated there between the lime and the dry Curacao. The Orgeat, I like using that 3/4 ounce dose. I know people, even if they want something that's more traditional, they would want to use a simple syrup, or what Trader Vic called for originally was, I think, a rock candy syrup. I didn't have a rock candy syrup, but also I just like that almond sweetness and a little bit of spice character that comes from an Orgeat. And the saline, it's easy to make. It doesn't make the drink salty. It just gives kind of a counterpoint to all the other things that are going on in the drink. It kind of helps each individual ingredient shine a little bit better. The world of rum, whenever you start getting into it, can actually be pretty confusing. In addition to marketing jargon that isn't always the clearest, there's also a lot of different countries that are making rum, and so they use slightly different terms. The two things I would say are the most important are the form that the sugar comes in. So like a fresh pressed cane juice, if you ever see rum, RHUM with an H, or like rum agricole, that's usually from fresh, or it has to be from fresh pressed cane juice. Whereas a lot of other rums are made from molasses. And so those will have very different characteristics in how they present. Also the distillation method, whether it's pot distilled or column distilled, or sometimes you'll even see like pot and column blend for some 4-square bottlings or stuff like that. In short, a pot distilled rum is going to be a little bit more ester dense. It's going to have a little bit more of that hogo, which is a rum nerd term. It means high taste. It's sort of a rum funk word. Or you have a column distilled rum, which is going to be a good bit cleaner, a little bit kind of sharper, punchier. That's all for the Mai Tai today. Thanks for joining. The next episode, I'm going to try something out that could be a little bit divisive, in that I want to do election night cocktails. I'm going to do a couple of drinks that are tiki connected as well. a red one and a blue one, and so stick with me to see what kinds of drinks we pull out there. Okay, so I made a little mistake, and next week is actually going to be a spooky Halloween episode for a tiki drink called a zombie. The week after that, so 2 weeks, will be the red versus blue election night cocktails. Back to today. Because at the end of the day, drinks are for fun, and my goal with this channel is to teach people enough to share that fun with the people they love. Come and be amazed at what you can do. Cheers.